Hello, and welcome to Mission Works, thanks to donors. We are going to go into the library. No, that's not the case. Libraries have changed, and the Christine K. Haase Memorial Library here on campus is an inviting place, and not just to seminary students, but to pastors and scholars, literally throughout the world. With us today is Dr. Bruce DeRozzi, who is the Special Collections Librarian. Welcome, Bruce.
Thank you.
Tell our donors what the Special Collections is.
Special Collections has three main components to it. And the biggest and most interesting is rare books, which we emphasize, of course, Lutheran teachings and the history of the Lutheran Church. And we have some thousands of books in that, close to 8,000 books.
8,000 books.
In that collection. We also have the library archive, which keeps published material from Concordia Seminary and its faculty, so official publications of the institution, and books. And those aren't necessarily antiques, so it's starting from the 1830s, but all the way up to the most recent books published by our faculty members. And in addition to that, we also have housed in Special Collections the collection from the Center for Reformation Research, which is, so that's still an autonomous organization, but we curate their material, which is mostly microfilm and secondary sources. So if we don't have it, it's almost certain that if it's important to Lutheran history and we don't have a print copy of it, the Center for Reformation Research has it on microfilm.
Our donors may not realize this, and I don't think I fully realize this, but Concordia Seminary is a scholarly resource, not only for the Lutheran Church, but for Christendom in general. But you mentioned Luther and his writings. Tell us about that little book there, just briefly.
Sure. This is the Sermon on the Parable of the Lost Sheep, written by Luther, published in 1533, shortly after it was delivered. This was the publication done in Wittenberg, which means that Luther probably personally organized it himself and supervised the press as it came out. And we're pretty sure that this woodcut was commissioned for this title page. It's specific to have, the picture of Jesus with the lamb over his shoulders. And it says, sort of incidentally on the title page, preached in Wittenberg at the castle for the, I am translating as I go, for the elector Johann Friedrich. And inside it gives the exact date of the sermon. And one of the things that's significant about it is it turns out to be the first sermon that Luther preached to Johann Friedrich after he became the elector. It was just a week after his father, the previous elector, passed away.
And the sermon is written about what story?
The parable of the lost sheep.
Yeah, that's great.
Although interesting, I am not a theologian myself, but I found it interesting that he spends more time talking about the frame of the story, not the parable of the lost sheep, but the account of how the Pharisees dismissed Jesus because he was preaching to the rabble. And that's the part of that story that Luther really
He may have been telling his own story. Now, I mean, we've got all these books. The most famous volumes in the rare book room are
the Johann Sebastian Bach's personal Bible.
We have at Concordia Seminary, your seminary, Johann Sebastian Bach's personal Bible. Is that a little pocket Bible?
It's no, it's a huge annotated Bible. So it takes up 3 big volumes, so as I was saying recently, that the first sentence of the Bible takes up 4 pages. So it says, "In the beginning," and then there's a whole column of annotations explaining exactly what Kadlov thought "in the beginning" meant, and everyone else who's discussed it. God created. So it takes up, so it ends up being a huge book, but Bach obviously read it and he annotated it, and we have marks in his pen, not just his signature, but actual underlining and comments that he wrote.
This is amazing. I believe we also have original editions of the Book of Concord.
Yes. We have
That's something.
6 copies from the Dresden printing, the first printing, and then others from the same year in other cities. But
Now, seminarians, guys studying to be pastors, young women studying to be deaconesses, aren't just going to go in there and hang out. So who uses the Rare Book Room?
I think, incidentally, I think that the students who are preparing to be pastors and deaconesses could benefit from it, and I wish I saw more of them, and I'm happy to work with them
okay.
when they come in.
Okay.
I think if they're doing anything,
Nota bene.
of course, it helps if you can read enough Latin or German to read the text, but even so, there are interesting things that we could share. But mainly it's PhD students here, faculty members who do historical topics, come to us frequently to see, either to see things in their original printing or to see things that are little known and just haven't been reprinted.
And these are not only our in-house people, but scholars from the country and even the world sometimes.
Yes, scholars come from abroad sometimes. I mean, the Bach Bible is our most popular request, but other things too. There are a handful of things that are hard to get anywhere else and haven't been scanned to digital, and often they'll just write with requests, and I'll have to make copies, or make scans for them. But there are a handful of things that you just can hardly find in any catalog anywhere.
We could turn this episode of Mission Works into an ongoing series. 8,000 episodes about all the books in Concordia Seminary's Rare Book Collection. Thank you, Dr. DeRozzi. Here at Concordia Seminary, we like to talk about the vigorous life of the mind in the service of the gospel. And that's what our library is about. And donors help make it happen. Donations make it possible to acquire important books for scholarly research. Donations help provide this inviting place for students, pastors, and scholars to do research so that they can share with the world the stimulating faith you and I have been given. It is true, in the library and wherever the Spirit motivates Christ's people, mission works, thanks to donors.